So this really, the Theologians for Life really comes from our Bishop Stebbins. She is, when she talks about the Christian formation, she really has wrapped her arms around that we're on a journey, a lifelong journey in our faith and our relationship with God and Christ. Today's agenda, we're going to, we opened in prayer already. Um, Today is about starting conversations. It's not about, we're not going to decide on programs. We're not going to decide on vision. We're not going to decide things. I just felt um, what really prompted this for me was that mental image that 2020 or COVID has created um, an etch-a-sketch moment, right? So we have vestries now. 2/3 of our vestries have not had a normal church year. We have had a year where the camp was fallow and not doing anything. We have some committees that have gone fallow and have been um, let go for now, and they're going to be restarting. And so, what does it look like at a parish level? What does it look like at a diocesan level to invite people again into community, recognizing that all of us have had disruptions, and that when we actually send an invitation out, we could be inviting everyone back into the church, or everyone into a relationship with Christ. So that's a huge conversation. And I thought, we need to start conversations so we can be ready, especially for the fall of 2021. We'll spend some time just in a little bit doing some introductions, an update with Camp Marshall summer 2021, so that if people are wanting to know what we're going to be doing this summer, we're going to spend a little bit of time on that. We're going to talk about strategic organizational changes happening now in the diocese that are we're not all there yet, but the conversations and the work is happening. Considering goals, how do we embrace them and begin planning? And at that point, we'll spend some time putting everything. We have a thing called Jamboard, and everyone should be able to participate and put. We can just throw a lot of ideas up and share. But we'll have, so that we have some time to brainstorm together. And how do we prioritize our work? And so this is intended to be just conversation starting. Reminders for our Zoom meeting: turn the microphone off when not speaking. Raise your hand or put a comment in chat if you have a comment. Mark Clemo and Janelle, when I do share screen, I see nothing. And so if you raised your hand, I couldn't see it. If there was a comment in the chat box, I can't see that. So Mark, Clemo, and Janelle are here to help. So if you put a text in or you raise your hand, they're going to help facilitate from the side, especially when the PowerPoint is going. We will be recording today's meeting. Internet speed at the camp has been a challenge. We've made some adjustments. Today we were hoping to reveal our first ever hybrid meeting space. Mark and I spent lots of time setting that up, and when the snow started falling, so did our internet speed. And so now we've had to abandon that, and so it's just a normal Zoom meeting. When we do the brainstorming and we get to that place where we're putting ideas up on the board, it's really important for us to remember there won't be any wrong things, right? So if we're putting things up, we don't need to hash out or pull one idea apart or break it all apart. What we want to do is create a space or an environment and a time together where we're creative and we're putting things up. We're throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. We'll take a 10-minute break at 2, and then so that just want to make sure that if people are worried about using a restroom or getting coffee or anything else, that's when we'll do our break. So I'm going to stop sharing screen here in just a second. What I'd like to do is have each of us share a little bit about our name, which congregation we come from, and what ministry are we most engaged with. And because our time is limited, we'll have to, in a sense, avoid long biographies. And so, and then we're going to go into which congregations just as a practice run. So I'm going to stop share. And I want to do a partridge family thing for a second. I'd like everybody to give everyone else a high five. So Steve, I'm going to give you a high five. Waiting, you don't leave me hanging. Mark, I'm going to give you a high five. Good. Excellent. And then kind of a partridge family thing going here. If you can look down and say hello to anybody that's below you. Hi, Valerie.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, Melinda.
Hi, Willits. Hi, Mark.
Hi,
I'm on the
everyone.
top row. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I can't see anybody, so hi, everybody.
Oh, okay. So I'll go first and I'll pass the Powerball. So my name is Dave Campbell. I'm the Executive Director here. I have been attending virtually the Holy Spirit because we subscribed, and we've been watching, my wife and I watch Holy Spirit services every Sunday, and then I drift into the cathedral occasionally. But that's I've become a virtual attendant and fan of some of the programming that's happening out of Holy Spirit. I'm going to pick Steve.
I'm Steve Day, and I'm the priest at St. Stephen's in Billings. And interested in everything, involved in everything. And I pick, or Joan.
Thanks. I'm Joan, and I'm retired, and I've spent some summers as a chaplain at camp, and I too am doing virtual church, but I usually hit 3 or 4 on a Sunday, which has been really kind of nice. But in this absence of in-person sacramental desert, I've been lucky enough to be able to go to Miles City and Forsyth about every other month and preside. So that's where I've been actually doing church, and it's been great. So I'm looking forward to what comes out of this meeting and the future for camp, because it is truly one of the best places. I have to pick somebody.
Yes,
Shoot, Valerie.
I am Reverend Valerie Webster, serving as Associate Priest at All Saints in Big Sky. And then I'm also the Ecumenical and Interreligious Officer for the diocese. And I've been a part of the video worship at All Saints. And we are now back to meeting in person. People have to reserve. It's we have a whole cleaning process for the church before we go in, and a cleaning process afterwards, and everybody's masked, and we have cantors who sing with masks on. And at any rate, that's what we're doing presently. As soon as we can get outside, we will. And we do, no matter what, even below 0 weather, we do Eucharist now outside. So that's how we're handling all of that. And I'm just grateful. I've been a part of Grace Camp, and then Reverend Janice Hansen and I have had the gift and privilege of doing a few contemplative retreats at Camp Marshall, and I'm just delighted to be a part in any way that I can be a help. And I represent All Saints. I bet I have to pick somebody.
you do.
Doris.
Hello, I'm Doris Gerstner. I'm from Billings. I attend St. Stephen's, but I'm treasurer for both St. Stephen's and St. Luke's. So I have vested interest in both churches and in the diocese. And I've had kids that have gone to Camp Marshall. Welcome back, Dave. And hopefully grandchildren who will be going sometime in the future. So let's see. How about Vicki?
Sorry, I have to unmute. My name is Vicki Teaberry. I'm the youth minister at St. Peter's Cathedral. And we are also meeting in person, which is nice. That's all I have to say, right? And I can't pick anyone because I can't see anyone. So could someone pick someone for me?
How about Mark?
Yeah, my name is Mark Lamo. I'm the site manager up here at Camp Marshall. I attend the congregation of Camp Marshall and am therefore extremely interested in youth ministry. Who has yet to go? Melinda? Yeah.
I'm Melinda St. Clair, and I'm the rector at St. Luke's in Billings. And I'm here because, like Stephen said, I'm interested in all facets of our parish and formation. And we have a couple of good youth leaders, and St. Luke's has a long history of a lot of participation and support for programs at Camp Marshall. So there you go. Brian.
Thank you, Melinda. Brian Beveridge. When I'm there, I serve St. Mark's in Big Timber. I'm hoping to return, as I said earlier, in a couple of weeks. My interest in camping goes back to when I was 7 years old and sent to a church camp. And one synod I attended, the bishop asked the clergy who had been to camp that was part of the diocese to stand, and over half had been persons who had some of their formation accomplished at the Dawson camp. So I believe in that kind of activity and just seeing how I might help. And I'll pass it over to, I see a Will, I'm not sure. Let me just go to gallery. Sorry, guys.
No, that's great.
Gallery. There we go. Who hasn't? Who hasn't spoken yet?
I think it's just us. Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. So I hand over to you.
Perfect. Thank you. My name is Janelle, and this is my wife, Hillary. And we are both the youth leaders at Christ Church Episcopal in Kalispell. Hillary also serves on the vestry, and we're also both godly play teachers at Christ Church. Very involved in and passionate about Camp Marshall and growing young adult youth ministry in the diocese.
I'm going to put a link in the chat box. So for those of you that have it, this is practice to put comments up on our board. The question that you should see if you click on that link is what congregations are represented here today. I know you just said that, but this is actually a practice for things we'll be doing later. I'll put share screen up so you can see what you've accomplished.
Yay.
Yeah, we're just learning. I'm going to go ahead and move us to the next slide so we can, I'll keep going.
Okay.
So what will 2021 look like, moving from uncertainty to certainty? Camp Marshall in 2021, what we're doing is we're going to be moving to family camps. And that's primarily so that we can do our very best job of protecting people from COVID. It allows families to stay in a cabin together, and they can have their own bathroom, restroom, and we can have families stay together during meal times. So it'll be different. The emphasis will be on non-pharmaceutical interventions, and then an emphasis on keeping a path forward with an eye on 2021. So what I mean by that is, for example, Grace Camp is we want to have a Grace Camp family camp. So we want to find families who have children that fit that criteria. That could be foster homes, that could be just the family structure that's there. But we want to have a week with those families, and it creates an opportunity for us to ask questions like, how can we do this ministry even better? Family camps with conversations around youth and family ministries. So when we have other camps, we're going to want to keep conversations going with parents about how we can do, youth and family ministries better. Before I go on, are there any questions about camp this summer? I want to pause there because if there's any confusion, I'm happy to answer any questions. Sure.
Okay. Well, we have like 3 families who And their kids make up the largest core of our youth. We have some others that aren't, we don't have a very big core, but anyway, they're all in each other's lives all the time. And their kids come to camp together and stuff, and they've been together all the time, all their lives. They're not biological family. So can they is this just for what you would call a nuclear family camp? Or could it be like a pod of people?
I would use the word pod. The pod would be fine.
Okay, so if they're a pre-existing pod, they can come as a pod to camp.
Yes. Yeah, and families can sign up for the day or for the whole week. It's $125 a day, and for a week it's $625, and they'll be able to apply for scholarship support if they need to. So we're going to try to keep a lot of that the same. It is the camp, in addition to their fee, is subsidized. So like when people make donations, those are spread out by the number of user days. So the $625, when you think about a family for a week, all the meals, all the programming, everything, that is an enormously good deal. So I don't know if, again, any of Janelle, I think Janelle has seen the drill downs in the budget. How good a deal is it, Janelle?
It's a pretty amazing deal, really, when you think about a family experience or vacation with food and activities included. But Melinda, one of the things that I think that's a really important point to bring up is that one of the reasons we think that this model could work this summer is because the families don't even necessarily have to know each other, but the main thing is they're sleeping in their own space and they have their own bathroom. So the possibility of cross-contamination is so much lower than when we have 7 campers sleeping in the same space and then interacting with all the other campers. So I think I think if I'm correct, right, Dave, even 2 families who didn't know each other at all could still come to the same week. Is that correct? Because our idea is to try to keep social distance and safe, but still provide programming.
My thing was for, can this, even if they have to be in separate cabins because of the number of them, but they're all podded together in life all the time, can they pod together at camp as well?
Yeah, I mean, so
Yeah.
the idea would be, for example, the difference between a family camp and a youth camp would be if we had, for example, 6 children in the same cabin or 8 children in a cabin, and one person was symptomatic, because people that were unrelated were there, then everyone would have to, in essence, go through screening and be quarantined. And in a family situation or a pod situation, the plan would be if someone was exposed or tested positive to COVID, it could be quarantine and or the family just goes home, right? And that's a very different dynamic than having to send people back to 6 different counties, and we don't have counseling staff also sharing the same cabin, so that would be an added layer of complication for us. So,
And let me just ask one other stupid question. Is pod the right word? I don't know what people call them.
no, that's a word that's been used by
Is that the,
other camps. It's the idea would be just being very intentional about where you have extended contact with other people. And we can still do programming where people can meet each other. We just have to be very creative on how we do that. So for example, I just ordered a way to do a game show night where families could be at a table, and we could do Trivial Pursuit, or we could do, kind of like ask a question, and then families would have an egg at the table that they could push, and it would work just like a game show. But they don't have to all, we don't have to all get close. But so we're working on creative ways to have fun. Any other questions on just how the summer will work? And we can come back at the end if there's more questions.
Dave, I have a question, actually. I'm sorry.
Sure.
So each of the, the bishop has been keeping track of numbers, infection rates by counties versus the state overall. Is there a point, at what point would camp be able to open up in a traditional sense? I'm not talking this year, but next year, what is the number at which we would brave having standard programming?
I actually don't have a firm number. I mean, in terms of a statistical number. I think what I'm what I would rely on is just the idea of the access to vaccines. So for example, if by winter of next year, there's a tested vaccine that children can have access to, I would feel that that would be a significant step towards our being able to do programming. And I mean, I look at things in a number of different ways. Just the absence of a vaccine, if anybody's kind of followed the numbers on the Montana map of COVID, from 0 to age, I think 18 or 19, roughly 15% of all the cases of positive COVID have been that age group. And what's really weird is even 10 to 19, I think there's more cases than people from 60 to 69. So I think it's a very real thing, and I'm just hopeful that a vaccine. I'll see if I can show you what I'm talking about. So let me go to share screen. So the two tabs are important. So for example, communicable disease plan, we can do all of the non-pharmaceutical interventions, and we can do the supply and procurement. Where we have trouble with a traditional youth camp is if there's an outbreak, what is the response and strategies? And with family camp, i.e. families being potted together, we can have a strategy that includes the family just needs to go home, where it's going to be much more complicated if we have kids in cabins. Let me go back up here. In the Montana numbers, this is an excellent website to follow vaccinations and progress. And I don't know if people can see this. I'll see if I can expand this. When you're looking at this from 0 to age, I'll just say 19, you've got roughly 15,000 cases, and against the state numbers of 100,000, that's roughly 15%, and that would be our primary group. Just the 10 to 19 is 11,000 cases. If you look at ages 70, 79, there's only 6,800 cases by comparison. So I think COVID is a very real thing for young people. And so that's one of the reasons I'm very cautious. And again, I think what normal looks like for us is young people having access to a vaccine. Hopefully that answers the question. So what's going on right now behind the scenes is the bishop has been working with diocesan council on developing a vision for the diocese. And she's been very intentional about inviting people into the conversation, lay people, clergy, to say, where are we going? And that's really critically important work. The goal is to then, once there's a vision, to have a Christian formation commission or committee that goes into motion, and we begin putting leaders here, and from Christian Formation Committee begin to populate subcommittees. So for example, in several years from now, there might be, I can't change this slide, but in several years, there might be like 8 or 10 different subcommittees or 6. But initially, it's going to be Christian formation and probably 2, maybe 3 subcommittees. And the goal there is to spend some time making sure that we're intentional about formation networks and formation networking. So for example, if you have a camp advisory board and you have people doing lay training, or you have a youth and young adult commission or young adult committee or vestry leadership training, if we have any of these things going on, some of the big work would happen here where leadership from each of these subcommittees would do visioning, like how are we going to accomplish the vision? And each group would be working together towards goals that we would take back, and then the camp could start doing things, but doing it not as a silo, but being in connection with and relationship with other subcommittees in the diocese. So that's happening. This worksheet has also tied to the work of the Congregational Development Task Force, which is currently active. They're the group that's working on the survey and the survey responses in terms of what's going on and the culture that's currently happening in the diocese. So this is really important work. What goals should we consider when we move forward? And this is the part that I asked everybody to do some homework with. When we think of goals, it's important to kind of separate, sort of the forest for the trees, in that goals should be big. I'll use an example. Suzanne Wilson hasn't checked in, but I was thinking about her all morning, thinking like, what would, if you said, my goal is to have 10,000 cattle, That would be a big goal, especially if you don't have any cattle to start with. You think, well, I want to have 10,000. So if you had a big goal like that, then you start have to creating a plan. So when we're thinking about goals, we're thinking about big picture stuff. I'm going to drop this in. This is going to be, for those of you who love whiteboards, this is a whiteboard. It's kind of a virtual whiteboard. Up here on the left, I've got a definition that came from another diocese about what Christian formation is. What goals should we consider? And I've put 2 samples up, right? And then you're all going to get a chance to start putting stuff in here. So this as an example, connecting with 1% of all youth in Montana. So you just saw that population chart. So here's how big this is how crazy I am. I'll just to say it that way. If we have 250,000 children from 0 to age 18, 10% would be 25,000. 1% would be 2,500 young people. So what would it look like if, when we talked about our diocesan youth ministry, we were talking about 2,500 young people and all the leaders and all the infrastructure that would go with that in the whole diocese? And you'd say, well, gosh, we have a long way to go. That'd be huge. My thesis statement would be, if we had 1% of all the youth in Montana that we were actively in relationship with and building Christian community, our churches would be full. Eventually, up here at the top, you'll see 1 of 4. There's actually 4 pages, and we're going to kick around to different pages here in a second. This first page, what we want to do is just get goals up here. So when I was sharing with you before, these are like Post-it notes. All you have to do to make a Post-it note is to make a sticky note, and then you can type in what you want and then hit save, and then you have it up there and you can throw it out there. So you are all welcome to throw goals in there.
I don't know what I want to write though.
I'm very grateful that you guys are all here. This is fun to see all the ideas going up.
I was going to comment that it is kind of a stretch for active clergy, middle of Saturday. So I appreciate you taking the time to join in on this meeting.
For those that are back with us, is there anybody is good at grouping, or because I'm wondering, I don't want to be the one that groups the ideas. I wonder if people see anything that's connected, or how you would group those things.
So are the colors reflective of the individual, or are they just random, or?
They're when you make a sticky note, I'll show you.
Okay,
Ours are random.
They're random, okay.
Right, yeah, so like when you make a note, they could be changed. So like when you make a note, there's choices up here.
Ah, I see, got you, okay.
If we thought that we had a theme and we said, well, these should be yellow, and
Right.
this other should be green, that would be something we could
Right.
probably do.
Got you.
I'm doing it in like categories, so we could do colors. So that's kind of how my thinking. I know everybody organizes differently.
Okay, so if you see, I mean, I just clicked on somebody else's to see if I could change the color. I think that's possible. So if people see natural groupings, is everybody okay with the idea of color coding or trying that on?
The way I was looking at it, can you see my cursor moving around and around?
No.
No. Okay, so like this one, these up here that I'm just kind of jiggling are like things about discernment, recruitment and training, staff and youth leaders and all of that. And that kind of goes then down here, connecting the youth, partnering. Oh, wait, this should. Okay, I moved that one. Mission trips, which leads that every Montanan will know, and we're engaging and reflecting our demographics. And then these that I'm wiggling, these are like practical things, And then we have this, there's service corps, there's a couple of service corps things that I haven't got everything stuck in, but that's the grouping I was kind of going for. And I know other people were moving them around, and I'd like to hear how other people group them. So I'm going to mute.
Are there any ideas that are missing that somebody has?
I'm working on one right now.
I can't seem to put anything up, but I'd like to see several of the youth ministries do joint things together from different parishes.
Vicky, I'm glad you said that, because we were just sitting here realizing that there are more active youth ministries in the state than we realized, which is really exciting, but also a little bit frustrating that we didn't even know that there were some churches right now that were doing some youth ministry. And so I think the idea of making sure our leaders are connected and then making sure those youth are connected is really important.
Well, I know we have a very small youth group, so it'd be nice if they had more social interaction than just the same 8 people all the time.
And Vicky, are you guys in Missoula? Is that what you said?
Helena.
Helena, okay, awesome. Yeah, so we're in Kalispell, and I know All Saints has some kids too, and so Helena is definitely a doable distance for us to come and do stuff. I think that's the thing right now about the Episcopal Church is, as we're at the beginning of growing, it's actually really good to get together with other kids. So even in smaller groups like yours, they know they're not alone, and there's other Episcopals around.
Right, I think that's really essential.
Does anybody want to take a stab at it, just sort of commenting on any one of the sections or groupings?
Well, there aren't enough colors, but I just moved this up here because the green one, develop a 5-year plan, kind of by itself in a sense, and the scholarship sure can go with it, but because it's kind of by itself as a group, right? Because it encompasses all this other stuff.
Yeah, that's one I submitted. I don't think I've ever seen a recognized 5 or 10-year plan. And not necessarily that you have to stick with it, but at least if you have it, it is a goal of sorts.
I wonder if it was a broader statement, 5 to 10-year plan for the diocese and the camp. I don't know if there's what I'm trying to think of is creating continuity.
Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, once again, these are just ideas.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm thank you.
Yeah, I really like the idea of talking actively about a 5 and 10-year and even 20-year plan for ministries in the diocese, for camp, and also the facilities at camp. I think all of that needs to happen so we kind of know what we're aiming for. And then I feel like every 5 years we should renew that, so there's constantly kind of a rotating plan in place of checking in with ourselves and seeing where we're at. I think a lot of people in this room has seen camp and youth ministry and other Christian formations ebb and flow depending on leadership and funding and things like that. So to be able to put a goal and plan in place and work towards it would be really nice.
So did I see Janice? Did I see you? Are you here? I thought I saw Janice's email.
One thing that I see on that board is just a lot of calls for collaboration and increased communication, whether it's like within the broader Episcopal Church or across parishes, or within across like ministries within the churches.
Yes, I am here, Dave, and Michaela, that really picks up one of the themes we picked up in the survey from the Congregational Development Task Force, the theme of collegiality. It can be a huge strength for us.
Thank you, Janice. So when I saw your email, I was like, yay. Janice is the lead on the Congregational Development Task Force. And so tremendous insight and wisdom in culture and working with cultures and changes and how to move an idea from point A to point B. So I'm privileged to be on that committee and just really grateful, Janice, that you're here.
Thank you. And late.
Well, see, but you showed up for the whiteboard work, which is really the most fun.
Yeah, this stuff looks really good. And I would say about the comments made about 5 and 10-year plans, you could make the plan for the camp. It just needs to integrate to the larger plan.
Is there a way we could put a Post-it in there to do that?
Yeah, you could.
Janelle, do you want to make a stab at throwing a Post-it that would embrace that idea, that thinking?
Me?
Janelle, Jan, I think you came in late, so I don't know if you know, or
I don't know the protocol.
yeah, it might be quicker.
Yeah, but I think that will allow you to get into the details of camp stuff, but you'll find this integration hinge between what you're doing and the diocese. And then again, that we hope that builds some unity. And the value, I liked hearing about the value of the plan, because the thing you do with the plan is you review it, and you see where you met goals and where you didn't meet goals. And if it stays alive, it's very helpful. If it goes dead, you lose trust, you lose inertia, but you also have the power of revision.
So for those that are here, one of the things I'll be doing, this work will go in 2 different directions. This work will go to the bishop, and then I'll also be sharing this work with the Congregational Development Task Force. So this is all really, really good stuff. It's 2:27. I'm wondering, are there more thoughts or more work we want to do on the board, or there's a couple of things I wanted to do, but I'm happy to stay here if this is it's helpful to see this going forward. And I can keep a copy of all of this and send this out to everybody as a follow-up, so that
Great.
if there's a need for, kind of growing an idea or building on something, that will be there. And what I'd like to do is I'm going to show you a Jamboard, and I'm just going to show a couple of different ways that I might unpack a whiteboard like this. I have 5 or maybe 4 screens up here. So this might be in terms of setting goals, would be here. Something I've been a youth director full-time for 3 years. So examples to consider when I was a youth pastor, things that I would do very intentionally would be in a local context. I was very in tune with being intentional about outreach events and having camper or my students participate with that. So for us, that might be a lock-in, that might be going to a concert, but in a sense, we'd say, here's an event that we want to invite people to. And then in terms of community development, as a youth leader, I might take my youth group to camp as a group, or I might have Wednesday night meetings, or I might have a Sunday event, but I would do things very intentionally with the community. And the difference for me as a youth leader from outreach to community, if I did an outreach event, I would say we're going to do a lock-in, and then the next 5 weeks, I just want the group to be a group, so that would not be the time to invite or bring new friends. And then there's discipleship training, which is very intentional. If you're working with young people, especially 2 or 3 years, frequently young people will come up and say, is there anything else I can do? What else can I do? How can I do more? How can I contribute? And it's really important in youth ministry to have leadership training that's for a narrower group of kids. And if you think about Christ, speaking with large groups of people, sharing about God and God's love, that is something that Jesus did. He was very intentional about doing things together as a group, and then he was also very intentional, especially in his last portion of his ministry, of raising up leaders. And so that would be, for me, working with a whiteboard like this or space would be, that might be one way I'd look at that. Another way I would look at this, formation and our settings. When I'm thinking about trying to build continuity, what are families, what are things that we would want our families to do at home? An example of that might be, is there a place or a space that's set aside in the home for people to pray? And is there a way to create in essence a discipline at home in prayer or sharing or supporting each other. So what are some things that we communicate for families? Then a congregation, what are things we can do there? And then a diocesan level. Another way of looking at this is there are some things that families can do that they should do that can't be done here. And same is true of congregation. There are things congregations can do that really can't be done at home, and then a diocesan level the same. So that's another way to look at a whiteboard. As a probation officer, I served as a probation officer for 2 years, and this really helped me when I was a youth director. It informs, it can help you when you think about what's going on with young people in your community. So part of my job was to do assessments of young people that were guilty of A and B felonies, everything from armed robbery to, well, I'll just stick with that, armed robbery. And so I would need to find out what was going on in the house with that young person, what was going on at that school for that young person in school, how they were connected to community, and what was going on with their friends. And what I found is that, for example, K through 6, there's an enormous amount of energy in terms of young people being connected to soccer leagues, hockey, whatever, you name it. There's stuff going on for lots. There's a lot of kids engaged that are, tied in the community, really engaged. After 6th grade, not as much, right? So a lot of the kids that were in youth soccer stopped being in youth soccer, and you'll see fewer programs for middle school students. And then, of course, by the time they get to high school, there's programs that you're competing with, but quite a few kids fall out of programs and programming. And so when a church, strategically is looking at how do we engage young people, one of the ways to think about it is when or where is there a real fall off? So for example, if you have 50% of your children a K through 6 that are involved in youth soccer, that might not be the best group to go after, or at least during soccer season. But there may be a huge disconnect in terms of what's going on with middle school students. Same kids. So this would be another way to look at this. And then when you're talking about helping a family, I mean, you can move these around, but if the church plays a lead, the church, sorry, I wasn't trying to do that. If the church really is engaged with the family and with young people, they can have a huge influence in terms of connecting young people and their families and doing things as family activities or youth activities. You can involve and invite their friends, and so there's a huge influence there. And then if there's a partnership or an awareness of what's going on with the school, church can play a huge impactful role in helping a young person navigate through junior high school, and then into being a young adult. So I'm just an advocate for looking at things from different perspectives, and I'm happy to visit with anybody about this. But the work we did today, this is huge work, and I just want to thank everybody for engaging in that. So here's another ranking. I'm going to put another link, or I'm going to put a fresh link in here. Again, this is just a way, if you click on the link, you should be able to rank the items in here in the way you see them as being most important. And I truthfully did not put them in any order. I think we have a total of 12. Is that right? Or I can't vote, so maybe I would, I think we're all in. Is there anybody that hasn't plugged in that wants to? Mark, you're gonna have to tell me, I can't see.
We have a total of 14 people.
Okay, so I can't vote, so that would be perhaps 2 people. And this is not a right or wrong poll, it's just a sense of where people feel things fall on the scale. Does anybody have a reaction to this order or this list, or is there something missing that should be there?
Dave, this is Janice. I really feel like broken relationships could be a lot of the past. and if the past isn't addressed up front, how do leaders know what to lead about?
So what I'm hearing you say is that a starting place is to make sure everybody in the room is healed or is that right?
Yes, understanding where things are broken and lamenting or recognizing that. I mean, that's what your leaders are going to develop themselves to address.
So, but that's also a very responsive form or reactive form of leadership. It's not exactly proactive.
Well, but you have to look.
It's important to know where you're coming from and to know where things are hurting. But I also think that in conversations like that, you tend to have some things that just people can't let go of, no matter how hard you try, or there's certain personalities that become a little potentially toxic or pouty if they don't get their way. And so I think you do need to heal those relationships, but there also has to be a point at which you just have to say, we have to keep moving.
Of course. And you would offer them the ways to keep moving and let them make the choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at least you bring it up, you put it on the surface, you let people wallow or lament or whatever they like to do. And then I agree, you move on. But if you don't give a nod to it early on, people will hold on to it even more.
Any other insight or thoughts or comments or reactions?
I personally am kind of relieved, I guess, and excited to see that leadership development and clear understanding of our vision is near the top, because I just personally think that that's kind of where we need to start, is kind of getting on the same page of what are we working towards, what are our goals, and then to get there, we have to grow lay leadership. Like, we're not going to grow our church if we rely on the 10 clergy that are involved. It's not going to happen. So we have to start developing lay leaders. It has to happen.
Anybody else?
I agree. I feel very strongly about the lay leader development, but I also, my hope is that that if we put on any kind of and I'm talking in person, when we get back to in person, that we could host some of that training development meetings, groups and things over in this part of the diocese and in Billings. And we have both the parishes here have good facilities, and there's a lot of places to stay. So it makes it really difficult when everything is concentrated in the east and northeast part of the diocese for the people over here, and to get lay people to, go do stuff. So that's my plug.
Melinda, thanks for sharing. I just want to share a personal story. I got involved in the Episcopal Church as a high school student. And at that time, there wasn't an Episcopal youth group in Kalispell. It was just a friend of mine's dad. And the reason I am as involved as I am is because St. Stephen's and St. Luke's held statewide youth events every single year. And to this day, those are some of my best friends that I have in the world. So, and Mark and Hillary, I think, had similar experiences of those statewide youth events, and then meeting again at camp are what cement our involvement. So I'm very, very on board for having events around the state. I think it's really important.
One thing that the ELCA does is that, because I'm at a shared ministry, different churches in different places host things, and then all the youth will come to the thing in that place. And that's just part of the culture of what they do.
I might add that the Episcopal Diocese, we used to do that many years ago too. So, and those are kind of to echo what Janelle said, as far as same thing. I mean, I've been Episcopalian really all my life, but youth ministry and the different churches and all that, and then camp strongly reinforces those relationships.
So if I may ask, what is the narrative around why we don't do that anymore?
Good question. I think a lot of it's logistics. Go ahead, Janelle, you were going to add.
Logistics haven't changed. The state is just as big as it always was.
I think the safeguarding element just added such a heavy level of burden of getting organized that various churches stopped doing it, because that seems to me it's about then that they stopped happening. I'm not saying it's a direct cause, and I'm not saying that through working together. I am 100% behind safeguarding, but I would have to observe that that's about the time that things stopped happening.
Yeah,
I
that's
would also
pretty,
echo that at one point in time, we had probably 7 fairly active youth groups in the state with leaders who talk to each other regularly. And that's kind of why I was saying that earlier. And I would say, again, Vicki, I didn't even know who you were. I'm so excited to meet you and know there's more leaders out there. But and then obviously Dave left for a while, and we had some different leadership at camp. And so the changing leadership and then the lack of communication, like Hillary and I really thought we were the only youth leaders in the state right now, truly. Like that's how it feels sometimes. And so I think some of it is, again, if our leadership's not connected, then there's no way for our youth to be connected either. And also we just used to put on the calendar, we'd have a spring event, a fall event, and camp, always. Like that was just, it was on the calendar way before we even did anything. And then at camp, we had those dates to plug to parents and to give to kids. So we said, hey, we know leaving camp is hard. You might not have a youth group at home, but we're going to be in Helena in October on these dates. We're going to be in Bozeman in April on these dates. If you need help with rides, we'll make it happen. So again, I think some of it's just that planning and getting that word out before, well in advance, so people know to do it. And so I think that, and I think it's very doable right now. Even hearing right now, there's more active groups than I thought there were. And so I think we can make it happen. Of course, COVID's a whole different thing, but we can do it.
Yeah,
Can I just add, St. Luke's does have a long history of the summer camp, and that's always really well attended. And we need well-trained, enthusiastic leaders to come from the camp staff to pull that off. But I also just want to be clear. I think it is good to have those regional youth things, but I'm talking about regional things to train the leadership, not just the kid, not just to provide something for the youth, but that's what's really lacking. And I think people, in my experience, when you have a group and the outside expert comes in, they're much more willing to participate than if the rector says, hey, let's learn leadership on Saturday. Yeah, I'm busy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
I think that's a totally achievable goal in terms of training and connectivity and programming. I think those are all doable. It's so often it's when you grow a youth ministry, and I can say this and then we'll wrap up. When you grow a youth ministry, my experience has been it takes about 3, maybe 4 years. But that first year, if you did, for example, a lock-in every month, and you work really, really hard, you're going to have 4, maybe 6 kids when you're starting from scratch that come that, each month. It's not the same 4 kids, right? So when you do your first lock-in the next year, pretty much all the kids that came to a lock-in the previous year show up the next year on the first night. So you might have your first lock-in with 16 or 18 kids. And then for the whole year, you're going to have 15, 16 kids, 12 kids that show up for overnights, but it's not the same 14, 15 kids. The next year, when you do a lock-in or you do your outreach event, all of a sudden you have 30, 35 kids. And you see what I'm saying is there's that relational piece that happens. And so often we get, I think, caught in the trap where if we see a church down the street that's doing something, we might knock ourselves out to do the same program, but nobody comes. And the key is really zeroing in on the idea that everyone that walks through the door is exactly the right number, right? And you engage and you're in relationship with the 4 or 5 that come through the door, and you don't look over their shoulder. And you have an amazing time with those 4 or 5. And then just trust that it's not a short-term successes. What you begin with is you begin with the end in mind, and you say, well, we're gonna stay the course, and we're gonna be really focused on these relationships, and we're gonna be here. And being there is a very intentional thing. And in the long haul, ministry, my experience in ministry is that it's relational. It's completely relational. And so my encouragement is, and again, that's maybe a commercial for myself, but I will travel anywhere. I will speak with vestries. I'll speak with vestries and alleys. I will speak with lay leaders about youth ministry. And now Zoom has made it possible. I could probably go to Alaska and train from Alaska, but I'm on my first COVID shot. I'll have my second one in 4 weeks. So, as soon as I have that and we begin looking at 2021, we should be able to start thinking about planning and training. And with that, I should probably, we're just a few minutes left. Is there anybody else that has something you want to share, or I have a screen or two that I want to put up so that you can fill out. I have an evaluation at the very end. So let me go back to share screen. And present. I am so grateful for all of you. The advisory board, just know that this will come into existence once Christian Formation is created. And they'll be working on the goals and the short and long range. Again, all of this information we have will go into the hopper in terms of what people will be looking at. But the focus right now is getting that vision out of council and then getting Christian Formation in power. And I thought did everyone on that link get an evaluation at the end?
Well, let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for this afternoon, for a time to come together, to share with one another, meet one another, and support one another. We ask you to allow these ideas to percolate within us and allow new things to emerge and new opportunities, that we may continue to find new and better ways to serve you and to serve one another. And we ask you to be with us as we go forth from this place, and allow us to continue to seek and serve you in all people. In your name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.